Hi, I'm Victor Lambs, and you're listening to The Secrets of Stargate, where we talk about hidden meanings and deeper layers found in the Stargate movies, TV series, and more. Joining me today are Jeff Haecker. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Victor.
And Lisa Jones. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, Victor.
Jack couldn't be with us today as his consciousness has been taken over by an alien entity. And today we are discussing what is, I believe, the 16th episode of Season 2 of Stargate Atlantis, The Long Goodbye. In this episode, the team discovers two alien pods containing the consciousnesses of Thalen and Feebas, frenemies from a long-dead civilization who were preserved after their ships were destroyed. When Thalen and Feebas forcibly take over the bodies of Shepard and Weir respectively, chaos ensues. Eventually, a bunch of stuff happens and everything is back to normal by the end of the episode. What were your thoughts on this episode, Jeff?
Yeah, this one was okay. I'm not going to say it was good. It was just kind of a very, run-of-the-mill episode. It had an interesting idea of consciousnesses being transferred into Weir and Shepard, and you got some action Weir, which was cool. Because we don't generally get much of that. There might be a little bit more later in the series, but we did get some action from her, which was cool. But other than that, yeah, it just, like you said, it kind of just goes nowhere, and then then it ends and things are back to normal. So, I think we were discussing before, and it looked like this was kind of a budget-saving episode, since it didn't have guests and didn't have new sets, probably very little in the way of new props and things like that. So, overall, it was, it was fine, but probably not one I generally will go back to that often.
And what did you think of this episode, Lisa?
I generally liked the episode. I thought it was fun for what it was. I liked seeing a different side of Weir and, her getting a chance to run around the base shooting people and talking differently. It was just, I thought Tori Higginson did a good job with it. And do I want to watch it a bunch of times? No. Because half the time I spent yelling at the TV, like, did you lock them out of the computer? Did you, all that stuff where you bring alien stuff back to the base and then you're just clueless and forget any protocol. But as a whole, I liked it. It was fun. It was different. I liked that it was Weir, got the body snatching this time, and that they all stand by and are like, yeah, Shepard, you should do it too. And it's just kind of farcical, but for what it was, it was enjoyable to watch. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of the team acting uncharacteristically stupid in this episode. Yes. Like, as you mentioned, they bring back these pods and they're like, well, let's activate it. And then Weir is obviously taken over by an alien consciousness. And they're like, well, let's possess Shepard too. And everybody's like, yeah, sounds like a great idea. She says he's her husband and they just want to say goodbye. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
And it seemed like the entire episode was set up just so that they could get that shot in the previews or, the coming up next of Shepard and Weir or Thalen and Feebas kissing, which they didn't even comment on the commentary track. They were just talking about something else at the time. But and Tori Higginson was on the commentary track with Andy Makita and their cinematographer. But yeah, it's just a lot of running around the base. So kudos to the set directors for making the 2 or 3 hallways of set that they have look different, and making Atlantis look big. But nothing. There's Caldwell's in it. That's good. I liked Caldwell in this. He was the only one who was acting at all rationally, I thought, for most of the episode. So I did appreciate that. But
and I like that they gave him a chance to, last we saw him, he had a Gould, and I like that they brought him back, and it's like, it's not the end of the world. He had the Gould taken out, and he still is we find out what happens to him, and he shows up on base here at the beginning of the episode to say, I need to mend some fences. I need to apologize. I need to make sure y'all are okay and know that I'm not possessed. And then he keeps using it as a jab the entire episode to the others. Like, are you sure you're not taken over by somebody? Are you sure that's really you? Like, I don't have any experience with this. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, and then he gives Shepard and Weir a hard time at the end about their moment.
Yeah. Sure, I tried to blow up the base, but at least I didn't try to kiss anyone.
That's right.
Yeah. And so, like I said, a bunch of stuff happened. So Weir and Shepard are possessed, and immediately they try to start killing each other. There's some doubt, at least in the beginning, until Caldwell regains consciousness, because Weir, Feebas, stuns everyone and then runs off, and she's with, Major Lorne and 3 Marines, and then somehow Tori Higginson, who probably weighs, 110, 120 pounds, is able to take down 4, 250-pound Marines. That was actually Tori Higginson doing the fight there, so that was kind of cool. It was well choreographed, but, alien consciousness or not, it's pretty unlikely that
she developed a bunch of muscle.
Yeah, and gained, the mass necessary to take them down so easily. But that's, I think, one of the highlights of the episode, actually, in terms of the action, because then we just get the 2 of them running through the base, trying to stay one step ahead of the Atlantis crew. They even take down Taylor and Ronan somehow. Ronan gets shot with a P90 in the crossfire, and so we get a scene where Beckett has to remove the bullet, by flashlight, which, he complains about it the entire time. He's like, I'm looking at the bloody dark ages here. And that's not a very good Beckett impression, but if you watch that and you watch a show like Supernatural where they're getting shot all the time and just, pulling bullets out of themselves, and you're like, yeah, I mean, people got shot before they had Atlantean scanners and stuff. This probably isn't a huge deal. Yeah. He didn't have his little mood music, his little iPod with his bullet removal mix queued up or anything. But Feebas is clearly the brains of the operation, because she finds a way to take over Atlantis and also potentially divert the halon fire suppressant into the living quarters, which I guess was a big conversation we saw before this episode happened, where Weir was opposed to having fire suppression on the base because presumably someone could commandeer it and shunt it off to the living quarters. And so there's a ticking clock there where she wants the Atlantis expedition to give her Shepard / Thelen and Rodney has to, fix power and hack into the computers, and Caldwell is saying, I need that now.
Well, I was thinking they need to have a protocol that as soon as someone's mind is taken over, even if it's a benign, you immediately change that person's security codes.
Yeah.
So that they can't be used. So that I just had that. I was like, why wouldn't you immediately do that? And then especially volunteering Shepard to do it. You're getting the 2, highest ranking
right.
people, giving their mind, because you don't, she says, Feebas says, oh yeah, Weir's in here too, and then she does the impersonation of Weir, but really it's Feebas the whole time. So yeah, I just thought that was kind of, like we said, they just, it's another episode where they don't have security protocols that they should, but
yeah, it would have been hilarious if they had gotten Dr. Kavanaugh to be Thelen.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That would have, I know why they didn't, but it would have been hilarious. Yeah.
Phil would have been like, never mind, I don't need that. Don't need to kiss him.
Yeah.
I do think it's funny, though, that with Duet, it was the same thing where they didn't tell anyone that Rodney wasn't completely Rodney. And the same thing here, Weir leaves and she's, giving orders. And that nobody knows that she's been, there's Major Lorne, okay, let's go, and I'm like, did y'all not just send out a memo? I don't know, something a little announcement over the loudspeaker, foothold, code, whatever. Don't listen to them. I don't know. But I will say her impersonation of Weir at the beginning, that was so bad. I'm like, y'all have lived with Weir for 2 years every day. And you thought that was Weir? She's never been giddy like a schoolgirl like that. It was very over the top, oh, it's so sweet and wonderful. And I'm like, that's not, Weir doesn't do that.
Yeah, and on the commentary, Tori Higginson did say, it was a challenge to play 3 characters. She had to play Weir, Feebas, and then Feebas impersonating Weir as well, and make it look different, but still somewhat plausibly Weir. The other challenge with this episode was some episodes, they just sit down and in 7 days, they just shoot the whole episode. But in the back half of the production, they have to meet schedules for other episodes. So they'll sometimes have to film an episode spaced out over several weeks. And I think this was filmed spaced out over almost a month, they said.
One of those.
Yeah. So it's like at the end of a day, it's like, well, I guess we got time to shoot this scene from Last Goodbye. And so let's get the corridor set up. And Taylor, you stand here. And Shepard, you shoot Taylor. And okay, we'll film the next scene in a couple days type thing. So
that makes sense, though, with an episode like this, because I know we talked about that with, I think it was Grace or other episodes with SG-1 where they did that. They filmed it just whenever they had time. And so that makes sense. It makes sense that you do that when you're I'll call it a low budget episode. You don't have any extra things and you have everybody already set up and ready to go. Like, okay, go change clothes. Let's go.
Well, you don't even have to change clothes. They always wear.
Yeah, exactly.
They always wear the same thing, don't they?
Yeah.
And the hair is usually about the same, so that's pretty easy.
Yeah, they did comment on the commentary about how Weir's hair was a little bit more unkempt in this episode, and that was unkept, and that was intentional because they wanted it to look like she was frazzled and not in possession of herself, I guess. So if you noticed that, hats off to you. I didn't.
Yeah, I don't remember if I did or didn't. So I just figured, they were running around trying to kill people. Maybe her hair wasn't the most important thing at that moment, right?
Yeah. And I can't even remember how this one ended, even though I watched it twice, I guess.
Their consciousness is just, they expire.
Running out.
Like, really,
yeah.
It's only a limited amount of time. So it's
convenient.
I think there was a seed of a good episode here where they could have really gotten into the backstory of these people and their because it's just like they were the last survivors of a war. It's almost like Dr. Strangelove, like, oh, the Russians are bombing us. We got to dig a mine shaft and get mine shaft superiority. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Just so we can, be the survivors for some reason that it doesn't really matter. So
yeah,
I don't know. It would have been interesting because we don't even get the name of their people. I don't think they're just they're just the last survivors of each other's country or nation or whatever. So,
and why they were so determined. They wake up and find out they're probably the last survivors. They've been floating in space for we don't know how long. And they're just both very determined to kill each other, period. No questions. No wonder what happened to our people.
Yeah, and even when the Atlantis expedition tells them, hey, your people are probably long dead, they're like, that's fine. I just want to kill this other guy.
Yeah.
And I guess they had met in battle before, so they had a history. It was kind of like the Red Baron and whoever Snoopy, fighting it out for who can be the last person standing, or Beagle, I guess, in Snoopy's case. But yeah, and so they do have a ticking clock, which is cool. It could have been cool if Weir as Feebas and Shepard as Thalen had managed to convince respectively half of the expedition to take their side or something somehow.
Oh,
and led to kind of a civil war. That would have been interesting, but required more extras, I think, than they had on hand.
Yeah. I will say Shepard was really good at which one was he? Thalen. Thalen was really good, I guess, at portraying Shepard because Ronan believed him, and I think at one point Taylor wasn't sure if she believed him. I mean, he was really good at that because you're like, wow, he's okay, that's good. And then of course I felt bad for Ronan. Ronan was just too gullible.
Yeah.
I was surprised Ronan was that gullible,
I'm very surprised. Yeah. You're like, Ronan's playing him, right? Ronan can't possibly believe this, right? And then Ronan's like, yeah, what?
Yeah. You're lying to me? I can't believe that. How did I stay alive as a runner for so many years?
Yeah. And then at the end, Taylor gives Thalen a stunner, as they have the final showdown, because she knows that even if and Shepard, Thalen is pretending to be Shepard, or we're not really even sure as the audience. Of course, Shepard, Thalen stuns Weir, Feebas as the clock is running out on their consciousnesses, and Taylor says, "Well, I gave you the stunner because either way, I knew you would have shot her." So
yeah, I felt like Taylor was kind of the brains of some of this, like thinking as a soldier, thinking ahead a little bit further than like Ronan was. I mean, I like that she was the one who ultimately had to go save the day in the field, while Caldwell's just like, go get him.
Yeah. Fix the ZPM, Rodney. Fix the computer, Rodney. Yeah, and there's some nice scenes between McKay and Caldwell where, Caldwell takes control and Rodney's like, but I'm the senior ranking, member of the scientific expedition. Why are you in charge? And Caldwell's like, because I'm the senior ranking military officer and this is a military situation, clearly. And then later on, Rodney's trying to hack back into the computers and says, I'm going to use my access code. And Caldwell's like, why your access code? And Rodney's, because it's a 16-character alphanumeric code that I'll have to enter hundreds of times, and I haven't memorized yours yet.
I know, I like that.
So, yeah.
Rodney was obnoxious. Rodney without being too obnoxious.
Yeah.
When he was fixing stuff and Caldwell keeps basically yelling at him to hurry up, and he gives him a, smart retort back, but it was good. It was like good Rodney, but not over the top. You want to smack him, Rodney.
Yeah. And I like the scene too, where, Caldwell's coming back at the beginning and trying to, mend fences, as you said, and do some damage control of his own. And, he walks into the lab where Rodney's there working, and Rodney sees him and he's like, oh, and he just says, hey, so that's all it took for Rodney to accept that Caldwell was back to normal and not a Gould anymore. So I did appreciate that. It's like, nothing needs to be said. We've all been there, right? We've all had our brains taken over by someone else.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because
right?
Rodney had, because Rodney had been with Caldwell, so he had that experience too.
And Taylor has been more or less possessed by Wraith, with their telepathy and stuff. So it's pretty much everyone at this point, except for Chuck.
Chuck. Is this the first time in Stargate universe, not the show universe, but like the universe, where we've seen someone been Goulded and de-Goulded and it really not be a big deal?
I mean, Scara, right? I think.
Yes, Scara.
Yeah.
I mean, Jack had a Tok'ra, and that O'Neill had a Tok'ra, and that wasn't a big deal. Although it took him a little while to adjust to it, right?
Right. But
Afterwards.
This one, Caldwell, they, however, I guess Asgard technology, I don't know.
Yeah, beaming
de-Goulded
technology.
him, and he's just, everyone's like, now you can trust him. Give him back those codes. Here's his command. Like, it's all fine.
Hopefully we instituted the blood test or some test to make sure you're not a Gould.
Yeah.
Like y'all said, the protocol just keeps growing of when you come back from a mission, you have to have all these scans and tests.
Yeah. But it's okay if you don't do them. They'll figure it out. It's all good. They'll save Atlantis or Earth or whatever eventually.
Yeah, and so this is a very talky episode, and I guess in the first draft of Damian Kindler's script, some of the talky scenes in the lab and in the med bay were actually almost twice as long as they were, and they cut them down quite a bit, but still, it's not exactly a edge of your seat type episode.
No, but I'm glad that I'm trying to anticipate what they would have put more talking in, and it probably would have been trying to explain the living black box recorder, they said that, why would you do this technology? And they just kind of figured it out, waved it away and moved on. And so I appreciate that. I don't need a lot of, sometimes they get bogged down in trying to explain everything to death. And it's okay in a TV show sometimes to just be like, no, this is alien technology. It's weird. That's it. Move on. So I appreciated that they didn't, they just didn't seem to worry that it will expire. There was no, oh no, what if they don't magical poof out of their bodies and what happens then? And No, they're just like Phelan said it would, or Feebas or whoever, and so
Beckett verified it and said, "Yeah, based on the brain scans, I can tell that it will expire in 4 hours or something." So
perfect. Y'all should have just locked him up.
Yeah. Anyways,
your favorite character was only in what, like one scene? Major Lorne?
Oh yeah, he was, and he got taken down pretty easily. So I don't think he's my favorite anymore. So he had one job.
Yeah, and Weir got the best of him.
Yep. Any other thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, not really.
I thought it was enjoyable to watch. It was fun. You need some fun stuff. We've seen a lot worse budget saving episodes.
That's true. At least there weren't like flashbacks like, the previous episodes, except for the beginning when they did it previously on.
Yeah.
But we did have a couple of foreign language titles. In French, we got Possessed, which is possessed.
Yeah.
That's my awesome French pronunciation. And in Japanese, we got Rongu Goodbye, which is long goodbye in, English, kind of. So those were the exciting things there. And we do have some feedback on previous episodes. On Grace Under Pressure, which was episode 211. That was the previous, one of the previous episodes of Stargate Atlantis we did. Mark Gillies, 1970 on YouTube says, when I first saw this episode, I came in late and I thought the whale was projecting Carter to McKay there. And I think we touched on that maybe a little bit in our episode about, we weren't sure if it was just McKay having a, brain issue or if the whale was somehow involved as well.
Yeah, just like in the episode Grace, we weren't sure if it was the Carter hallucinating or if it was the cloud or whatever it was outside as an alien.
Yeah, I wasn't on that episode, but I always thought it was the whale, kind of projecting into his mind to help him, because we do see the whale. We do see them later do similar things. So I always kind of assumed it was the whale using his, subconscious there.
And on episode 212, which was Ethan, SG1 episode, doesn't have anyone named Ethan in it. We do have some good comments there. NJ Esperantis asked, I have long wondered and failed to discover who designed the prop ship for the Prometheus. It's so clunky, yet lovable. Any idea who designed it? Well, I did a little digging on Joseph Malazzi's excellent blog, and the designer of the Prometheus was James Robbins, who designed most of the ships on Stargate from the very beginning. So whenever you see, I think, like a cargo ship or a glider or anything, usually it's James Robbins who has designed it. Also on YouTube for the same episode, Flying Car 100 said, Wikipedia says we were having a discussion about whether or not an F-302 could fit through the Stargate, even if you folded the wings up. Flying Car 100 says, Wikipedia says a Stargate has a diameter of 22 feet. I assume that is the exterior diameter and not the interior diameter. I think we determined the interior diameter was 16 or 18 feet. This is important, people. No,
I don't remember.
Something like that.
And then,
yes.
And then Mark Gillies, 1970, again on the same episode, just has a hashtag that says hashtagged Pendergast deserved better.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that's a good one. So feel free to use that hashtag Pendergast deserved better on social media along with Save Stargate. And maybe we'll see more Pendergast in the future, but I wouldn't bet on it.
That'll be the reboot of an alternate timeline. Of course, they bring him back and the Prometheus is still here.
Yeah, the Prometheus from another dimension comes through a wormhole or something.
There you go. And that could reset everything. I don't know if that's good or bad. Let me think.
I mean, it's kind of like what they did with the Babylon 5 animated movie from a couple of years ago, where they're dimension hopping and they end in a dimension where everything is more or less where season 4 I think, of Babylon 5 ended, so you could have, and the entire cast is there, so you could have more adventures where I do hope they make more Babylon 5 animated movies, because The Road Home was excellent, and people should watch it if they're Babylon 5 fans. Great. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons at this time, who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Stargate, including Michael B., Jonathan K., Corey L., Jenim, and Teresa C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Stargate and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give, and be sure to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or find our video versions at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. And to find previous episodes of Secret of Stargate and to send feedback, please visit sqpn.com/Stargate. You can email us at stargate@sqpn.com or follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia or on X at SQPN. And we'll be back next time with the next episode of Stargate SG-1. Until then, Jeff Haecker, thank you for joining us and sharing the secrets of Stargate.
Thanks, Victor.
And Lisa Jones, thank you too.
Thanks, Victor.
And I'm Victor Lambs. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Stargate on StarQuest. And remember, we don't have much time, Thalen. The imprinting is temporary, and these people are going to try to stop us.
Anyway, I'm sorry, but that just happens to be how I feel about it. What do you think?
I just realized we didn't even talk about the whole beginning with the TV thing.
Oh, yeah.
Double Jeopardy. Gives people something to comment on. Y'all didn't even talk about this.